Alafia. I'm Philip John Nymark, the founder of the Iyanifa Foundations of North and Latin America, and welcome to the Iyanifa blog. Today I wanted to talk about evil. Evil seems to be one of the really big issues when people get involved in spiritual endeavors of any kind. And most recently it was brought to my attention by several of our initiates who had previously been associated with a madrina, a woman in the Atlanta area. If you wanted to get rid of your husband literally and or figuratively, she proclaimed that she could do it. It came to my attention because several of her godchildren contacted us to say that the woman had just gotten back from actually going to Africa for some kind of EME initiation. Apparently she wanted a greater hold on all of these negative energies, and upon returning back to Atlanta, walked out to put her garbage into the dumpster and dropped dead. But in another more important sense, it tends to substantiate this concept that evil is something of its own. It's kind of like a self-encapsulated, semi-aware, sentient kind of activity or energy that's out there. I mean, that's where the Christians, were able to sell the devil concept. The Yoruba, however, had a much different worldview. The Yoruba worldview included the Iyanifa, which apparently was the last imbalance in the already imbalanced matrix of this woman, were seen and identified as pure energies. And the Yoruba understood that in order to balance this world, to have a perfect world, that it had to contain both sides of every energy. In other words, you couldn't have happiness without having sorrow. You couldn't have love without hate. You always had to have these balancing energies. And here is an important point to understand. Even though they were balancing, they were not evil. They were simply balancing negative energies. They weren't out to get you. They were simply there because, in a perfect construct by a perfect creative force, they would have to be there. We as individuals are part of this entire matrix that we live in. And it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a relationship that is supposed to depend upon our awareness and our positive working with the productive energies to make our lives and the lives of those we love better. And ultimately that is a matter of choice. And that's where in Ifa, genuine African Ifa, the way it was intended to be, not the way that most people are even practicing it today, and certainly not in the way that Santeria, Lukumi, and all of these other ersatz Christian, Catholic philosophies view it. But they understood that character was the key to everything. The expression, "it's easier to change a man's destiny than his character," gives some indication of the importance that the Yoruba felt about this. And character was not some theoretical tool or goal that was dependent upon following a specific list of rules, 1 through 10 or 1 through 20 or 1 through 500. It was a matter of making rational judgments. Those judgments depended upon not only our own personal desires or needs at that time, but the understanding that our actions influenced those we love, our family, the community we're part of, the planet we live on. And if you make those kinds of decisions in the way that the Yoruba envisioned them, you do not choose negative energy as a way of accomplishing them. It's antithetical. It's a direct opposition to a world that functions symbiotically, to a world that relies upon the interrelationship and the benevolence of the structure. So therefore, when we talk about evil, we don't want to see it as a thing. We want to understand it as a choice. And by the way, not a choice where there's some little, horned or devilish creature saying, come on, do this just one time. Okay, we'll rob the bank, we'll molest the child, we'll just one time, nobody will ever know, don't worry. No, it's a choice of our understanding that it is our decision which or what energy to use that makes it either positive or negative. And when we use energy in a negative fashion, rather than in a balancing factor, then we create evil in our own lives, and more importantly, in our own matrix. You see, our matrix was meant to function, to heal, to provide us with the emotional, spiritual, and physical energies necessary to fulfill our destiny. And it vibrates on a level that responds to positive decisions, decisions with good character, and it rewards us for doing that, for making those choices. And ultimately, it punishes us for not. And whether it's a bad-charactered Madrina lying dead by her dumpster in Atlanta, or whether it's destroying the habitat, the earth we live on, with thoughtless ways of drilling for oil or disposing of our waste, it won't make any difference. It is the result of a conscious choice, not for a devilish, enticing offering, but for our own short-term interests that we see as predominant and imperative at that point in time. It's very much like dieting. If you are dieting and you eat 3 Hershey bars in your closet so nobody can see, it won't make any difference. You can't fool your body. The calories go in, the weight stays on or increases. And it's the same thing with character. Just because nobody knows, perhaps, that you are the one acting with bad character, won't stop your matrix, your energy matrix, from reacting in a way that is negative for you, for your physical health, for your emotional health, and for your spiritual health. And you're really only going to understand that if you can understand that evil is not a thing. Evil is a choice. Make the right choices. Until next time, love and blessing. For help in making the right choices, visit us on the web at http://ifafoundation.org.